off to Gilles. All right, let's go.
So,
welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, by the way.
Hi everyone. Good morning. This session is about, but it's a follow-up actually. So we're gonna deepen the practice. But first, I want to see if there are any questions to answer to, and that especially if you have like a special request. Like you want to review, you want to go deeper into a particular aspect of what we did last week. And that would be very welcome also, because I like to always stay practical with the practice. I want my, whatever we're doing to be useful as much as possible to the attendees, to whoever is here. So go ahead about questions. The irony.
Hello.
Yes.
I missed the first two sessions, but I did catch half of your first video yesterday on YouTube, and I downloaded your book, Biology of Consciousness. Will I obtain all of the information through the booklet that I downloaded?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, all the information's there, but also you have the recordings. And like Jill was saying last week, you know, the book is good for information, but the live recordings helps for integration and learning it in a different way.
You know, the only way actually to really learn these kind of things is what they call transmission. And transmission comes, yes, through learning, through your mind, through thinking process and some kind of understanding, but also through doing. And the doing parts is what we're here for. And that's why, you know, I want to guide it as more adapted to your needs as possible. So to bring back what we did last week in terms of the practice of meditation, basically we worked on the two axes of the consciousness, spiritual axis and soul axis. And those two axes are all anchored into that one intelligence that's central. We call the earthy intelligence. That's a sense of self. I am, I feel, and I do. You know, that's my presence, basically. So we started the practice with that one meditation, exploring what I call the zone of influence from yourself. Yes, you are in your body, yourself, but also how far do you extend inside the world? We're talking about the shirt that you didn't make it, you didn't grow the cotton, you know, someone else did it for you, you know, all this. The food you eat has been grown a long time ago, and it's all kind of process that involve many people that you don't know, but is part of your, we call, system of support around you. And yourself, you know, being a system, you're a link. You're a link in that big chain and that network. And whatever you do has repercussions that actually can go all around the globe. And you don't really know, but it's good to be aware of it. So that's the earth intelligence that's anchoring basically ourselves as a mind in our presence and as what we do, and we call a footprint of our existence. Any questions about that earth intelligence? Because it's a key really to understanding consciousness. We talk about the soul that's made of the capacity to think, and thinking process and feelings, emotional intelligence. And then there is that the spiritual axis, which is not, even though, you know, called very personal because it's anchored into your body, but it involves your ancestors from the past, from water in your back, to your future, to your next generations, to even what you do right here, right now, for tomorrow, that actually creates your future. So those two axes, spiritual axis from past to future, and soul axis that we take more personal because that's our soul and that we don't share, and that's our feelings and our belief system, basically. So, yes, any questions about that? That's a basic structure for consciousness.
Yes, I have one question.
Yeah.
So I've been reading in the chapter 1, and then it says the Tao is the way things are right here and now.
Yes.
And this will change by the time we can verbalize the first attempt to define it.
Exactly.
To me, that sounds also like earth element.
Absolutely. Earth basically is what we call space-time. Mm-hmm. It's the here and now. That's Earth. So when we talk about our Earth intelligence, is me right here, right now. That's a very difficult part of ourselves to grasp because we need to grasp through thinking. And thinking always going to be a delayed reaction. So we are only aware of what we were, not what we are right now, because we need to think. And thinking always going to be a delayed reaction on the present. And that's, we're talking about this only capacity, that's like extraordinary capacity, mental capacity of rational thinking to be able to step out of the present. And that's actually the only intelligence that can do that. And that's extraordinary. That's what gives us that consciousness, mental consciousness, this capacity to step out of the present and contemplate and see what's in front of us and be able to see, oh, whoa, that's the way I feel. Oh, this is what I want. This is what satisfies me. And this is what I'm used to. This is what makes me feel comfortable. So as soon as we are in that mode, we're not present. And that's why there is all this, in the West, in our Western culture, this need to go into meditations, to try to grasp that present moment. The whole practice of Zazen, for example, of the sitting Zen practice, being present, so difficult for Westerners. Why? Because we try to not to think. That number one is not possible. And number two, it's like it's very hard for us to grasp the not think, because the earth is to be able to connect with that earth intelligence. That earth intelligence doesn't need to think. It is here already. It knows everything. And that central physical, called body's intelligence, physical intelligence, knows everything already. So that's it's the place where answers are coming from, not questions. Questions are always going to come from thinking about things. So that's why it's very important for us to differentiate in our consciousness that part of us that's always stepping back to be able to see what's in front of us, called consciousness, mental consciousness, and that immediate inner intelligence and the physical intelligence that knows everything. Now, I know it's very difficult for us to do that. It took me a lifetime to get here, to be able to define it, through practices and physical, actually, called repetitive movements. In psychology, they call everything that's not part of rational thinking, subconscious. So that means that it's under consciousness, but it is immediate. And all the emotional body, or feelings, and we call the mental intelligence, and we call the meta intelligence, emotional intelligence, that intelligence is immediate. It's right here, right now, all the time. Meaning that in terms of feelings, in terms of emotions, we have the whole spectrum in front of us all the time. But we don't have the energy, fortunately, we don't have the energy and actually the capacity, you know, the infrastructure in our brain to be able to get everything, all the feeling all at once in front of us. We have to think back about them. That's why the thinking is so important, because that gives us consciousness of the way we feel. Yeah. So you have to ask always yourself, how do I feel? Well, your body knows the way you feel, but your mind, rational thinking, has to translate. See, the body and body's intelligence doesn't speak English, doesn't speak French, doesn't speak Chinese or whatever. Yeah? The language, we call language, articulated language, descriptive language, is a big job of rational thinking. Yeah? Yeah, that's why it takes time. It takes time to think, it takes time to translate, it takes time to talk about it. Yeah? Feelings are there, but there is no labels on them. The labels are put by rational thinking. Same thing at the physical level. Physical intelligence has no like vocabulary, no sophistication in language, but all the knowledge is there. So we need to use consciousness in a way that's productive and constructive, meaning that we, instead of using only our mind for what we're used to is problem solving. Problem solving, that means that anything we think of, we're educated to make it a problem so we can solve it. The only thing is that, fortunately, your body is not a problem, it cannot be solved. So the rational thinking, basically, of education haven't taught us what else to do with it. And that's what we're here for. It's really, number one, to be able to differentiate our mind into those 5 intelligences so we can use our mind much more productively and more efficiently, especially by avoiding what we call, not avoiding because, okay, I mean, we're stuck with it with that education of ours, is to be able to work out what we call internal conflicts, especially within our own soul. We think a certain way, we feel another way. Now what we're gonna do, right? So from rational thinking, we're gonna have to solve the problem. But emotions are not rational. They cannot be solved. So we are basically caught up into a mental attitude where there is no solution. And that's where get us very distressed and feel like powerless with our emotions. So the whole idea is to let the problem-solving part to rational thinking, and knowing that emotional intelligence has its own job to do. It cannot be done by rational thinking. Emotional healing is something so important. It's actually number 1 in terms of healing. But it cannot be done through problem solving. It is a growing process. It's acquiring the maturity. And to acquire maturity, you need to get the energy that makes you grow. And that energy comes directly from those emotions we are in conflict with. Meaning that in terms of trying to fight them, we'll actually digest them, we integrate them. This is the way I feel. I don't have a choice. That's the way it is. So those feelings that I don't like, that I feel within myself, I have to let my body digest them. Basically, we're naturally designed to do that. All the body knows is permission, just waiting for us. Waiting for what? Is waiting for the consciousness of ours to tell, okay, that's the way I feel. That's consciousness. It's a rational thinking, looking back at the feelings. And those are the feelings I don't like. Huh? So what do? It's nothing you can do in terms of mental. But the body is already designed to work that out. And you know when you do that every day, you do that actually every night. It's through digestion. The emotional charges we have to work out don't get solved emotionally. And they don't get solved mentally and rationally. We outgrow them. It's a growing process that comes out of internal digestion in the classical, Taoist system called internal alchemy, where your body extracts and purifies and clears up the negativity of the emotional charge we carry in ourselves. And what we digest is only the very best of that energy that makes us grow. And the growing process allows us to get to a place where we don't get negatively affected by those emotions any longer. And that's basically, in a nutshell, the base of the healing process. And the healing process from that perspective, and we get sick because we need to heal. We get sick because we're confronted with those internal conflicts that get us to a place of crisis. And going through the disease allowed us to work out internally through that we call internal alchemy, a transformation that makes us growing through this time of crisis. And we digest, and we come out the other side. Say, oh wow, I feel much better now. Not only feel much better. See, healing is not going back to where you were before you were sick. No, because that's what gets you sick. You don't want to get back there. You want to go to be much better. You want to get to a place where you're not affected by what's triggered, the pathology in yourself. So that's the growing, that's the soul, the work of the soul. When we work that's our soul. That's what's crystallized in ourselves. And we spend a lifetime polishing, sharpening, making, that crystal in ourselves clearer, bigger, more beautiful, and be able to reflect more colors, basically. And so that's the monastic practice of the fusion. And I'm gonna do that eventually. That's part of what we do here. And that's a part of we call that be able to upgrade into a human condition. Okay, so I've been talking. Now, is there any question that came out of that?
It might be a detail, but there is something you said last class which got me stuck a little bit. It's the story of the bell peppers, how nature goes back to what it used to be.
Yeah.
But it also evolved, right? It adapts. It just
exactly. It changed all the time. Yes.
Okay.
See, that's what Taoism is about. That's why, I stick to Taoism. It's not because I try to imitate some kind of something cultural that's foreign, Chinese and all that. No, there's no interest in that. Taoism for me is a very solid perennial philosophy. And the base of this philosophy says everything changes. There's only one thing that doesn't change in life, is the law of change. But the whole universe is in state of evolution, of expansion. So is human consciousness. And the whole idea is to be able to adapt to those changes all the time. And the adaptation of those changes, that's what makes us evolve. Not only as a person, but as a human condition at the collective level. So peppers, yes, but we're peppers too. Anything alive, anything alive around us reflects us. We're all the same. We're part of the big network of life. Go ahead, Daniel.
I have a continuing question. It happens almost every time you talk about the two axes.
Yes.
And that is that I have the sense when you're talking frequently that the earth is in my heart. It's in this cavity here.
Yeah.
And that my thinking and my discernment about my thinking go through there. And
Yes.
I feel it, right?
Yeah.
That when I'm inspired, I can feel it like above me.
Yeah.
You know, but then earth is below me. I filter through, you know, so it's like I feel it with my feet as, you know, it's like, and then I get confused. I get confused, feet, heart.
Yeah. That's because of our habits of thinking about the earth as being planet Earth. Earth with a big E, as a Taoist earth, you know, from the earth power, is not only planet Earth. It's the whole thing. It's the whole universe. So where is the whole universe? Of course, it's below you, but it's also above you. It's all around you. It's in you. It's everywhere. See, that's Earth is an absolute. We call absolute yin, right? In the I Ching, the three broken lines like that. Absolutely yin means that's what's most absolutely essential. It's the base, it's the support of existence. Basically, Earth is way beyond just the planets and the galaxies and the space for it. It's the whole of the place of what we call existence. Is basically the infrastructure that holds the whole of existence. So the Earth intelligence within us that's where it is. It's the central part. It's the center of the hub. See, there's a hub, and then there is a center of the hub.
Yeah. And now I have this sudden sense that it goes this way, and
it's all
it
around.
radiates, and it's almost like there's an electromagnetic sensing, you know, or like a energetic sensing of Earth, big Earth.
That's what allows us to give Earth a shape. What rules shapes as a elemental force is called metal. Metal comes out of the Earth. If you look at the 5 elemental system, you see the Earth, right? The cycle of creation. You have fire, earth, then metal, and then water and wood, right? So metal comes out of earth. First, there is a place for the light. Before there is a light, you need a place for it. The light has to reflect on something. What the place of reflection of the light is earth. We call earth. And then from
so many
there,
levels.
And from there, everything takes shape. And the shape is given by metal. Again, metal is the surface contact of everything that gives shape. And that's why it carries so much beauty. Because it reflects the light, it reflects the fire. It reflects the spirit. Because even before there is earth, even before there is metal, there is a plan for it. there is a attraction. There is a need. There is a need for it. So the fire, that's the fire of attraction of the spirit that brings earth. That's why earth comes out of fire. Yes, and the substance of everything, the infrastructure of everything, nothing exists without a need for it. Nothing, you know, in the Western perspective, we have what we call chance, by chance. Nothing comes by chance. See, everything has a need, everything has a purpose. Yeah. So that's fire. So out of fire, out of the law of attraction, that attraction comes a universe. That's Earth. And the universe has a shape that's given by metal. And out of that shape, out of that earth, from the fire, from that attraction, comes the essence of life, and that's called water. And the base, the blueprint, so the blueprint of life, that everything that comes alive in creation has already a blueprint. It's called DNA. Everything alive on Earth has the same base DNA. If we do not have the same base DNA with the lettuce, for example, we won't be able to eat the lettuce. Because the lettuce become us. In order for the lettuce to become us, it has to have the same base DNA. Ah. So we grow, and we maintain ourselves as substantial beings through absorbing the product of the earth, because we are product of the earth ourselves. Therefore, we grow from that. There is a cycle. There's a cycle of sustainability in terms of being part of creation. We have to absorb it in order to be it.
I'm in wonder as usual.
That's okay. You know, it's just a different paradigm. See, it's a different viewpoint. It's very difficult to really get in that viewpoint with being still 1 foot into the basic Western paradigm that everything is by chance, and you know, at the origin there is nothing, and then comes one. That's not possible. You know, the base of all this really is rooted in mathematics. You know, I don't know if I want to get into that because it gets really deep. Like, you know, mathematics basically is the law that rules physics. It's the language of the creation, basically. It's really what rules everything. And it's very difficult to explain numbers. Number 3 is the base of balance. Number 2 is, well, duality and all that. Number 1 cannot be explained mathematically. It's very difficult. It takes pages, right? You know that, Daniel, okay? And you know what? When it's explained, they don't make the difference between 1, the singularity, algebraic, singularity, and the 1. So 1 should be written by a bar, which the bar already is 2. It's 2 points. It has to be 1 point, but 1 point don't see it, so you have to make a circle around that. So the 1 as a big one, the whole one that holds everything, like the coming out of the singularity, which is the origin of the Big Bang. So 1 should be written, the big circle, maybe with the point at the center to make it more Westerner. So that's that's where the biggest confusion comes. You know, even our base of calculation is kind of frowned to what is, because what is 1.
This brings to mind 2 things.
Yeah.
You've talked about the first one, which is that beautiful Zen Sumi painting.
Yes.
Right? You know, now you've introduced the possibility of, and then it brings to mind Dick Schaup's mathematical paper for the X Prize in physics, in which he talks about the origins of time and space from simple mathematics.
Good.
And he talks about how we have never in physics come, you know, he's basically resolving the problem in mathematics that everyone acknowledges that Einstein left us.
Yeah.
And he's saying the math doesn't work. The theory is directionally correct, but there's a problem.
Exactly.
And then he says the reason we haven't been able to come to a unified theory of large and small, the reason we cannot keep coming up with a scientific explanation for everything is because we keep starting with
1.
Something.
Yes.
Strings, quarks, particles.
Exactly.
And then
That's
he steps
because
back.
we're stuck with building blocks.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
world is not made of building blocks.
Yeah, and I've sent to you and David and Jack this paper, but he steps back and then he says, you have to start with no thing.
Yes.
And by that, I do not mean zero.
That's right.
The empty set. I do not mean that. I mean no thing. And then I can't do the rest any more than I could do you. But the paper is so elegant, just 7 pages.
Nice.
You know, and 5th grade mathematics.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. We're getting there eventually, you know. We just have to become a little more human for that. Okay. So basically, to become more human as a humanity, as a collective, we have to start with that ourselves within the circle. That's why the point in the center, basically, that's the place of I am. That's the center of the earth. That's, where is the center of the earth is I am. That's right in there. So you might feel it in your heart, you might feel it, but it's in your body. So say, you know, it's the center of your identification with existence. That works?
With your permission, Jill, people are asking. With your permission, I'll post the link.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, go for it. And I believe
yeah,
Kaleo.
And I'm going to do that later because I want to drop in. I don't want to be administrative right now. I'm kind of in shock.
Yeah.
Daniel, I'll share it when I email people afterwards.
Cool. Very good.
Oh, I was muted.
Okay,
Kaleo,
that's a little bit heady. So I'm sure that most of people, they kind of lost. So I would like to get something more connected with the practice we've been doing last week. So any question or should I start the practice?
I believe Kaleo has something.
Oh, go ahead, Kaleo. Yes.
Oh, Gilles.
Yes.
I was just wondering, you said that everything on Earth has the same DNA, and that's why we can eat it.
Yes.
And you know, because we're similar that way. What about the stuff that are poisonous and we can't eat? What kind of DNA does that have?
No, it's nothing to do with DNA. So it still have the same base DNA, but what's poison to us can be very good food for something else. For example, I just planted milkweed in my backyard to attract the monarch butterflies. And it's amazing because it's just a couple of inch tall, just growing. It's already eggs on them. It's amazing. There's so much need for it, right? So why monarch butterflies grow so abundantly? Because monarch butterflies are poisonous to most birds, actually to all birds. Why? Because they eat the milkweed. And the milkweed is basically toxic to everything living around. But it allows the monarch butterfly to exist. See? So it's all part of a whole cycle of existence, of interaction. So when something is toxic, yes, there is a DNA thing in there because it's programmation. But the program is part of the same program. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right. Same operating system, different program. Yeah. Okay. All right. Questions about practice. The practice itself. The practice itself for me is, okay, understanding. Answering questions is very important because, again, we function from rational thinking. But in order to integrate really that information is to be able to use those intelligences more efficiently. And since this cannot be done through rational thinking because it's too late, we have to educate our consciousness to be able to function that way. And this has to be done through we call repetition, physical repetition, because we're accessing information that's deep inside we call the subconscious. And that's because it is being integrated and that's basically our conditioning. So to change conditioning cannot be done only by understanding that we need to behave differently. I'm sure you tried it before. You know, it's something you don't like. You know, you have a habit, but you don't like the habit, but you can stop it. How can you stop it? You know, because it's faster than your thoughts, right? So the only way to change a pattern of habit is by adopting another habit that becomes a better habit. You cannot get rid of habit because that's physical reaction. It's too fast. That's called reflexes. You don't have time to think about it. You're going to think after it's done. It's too late. So that's how we learn, is by making mistakes. And then we realize, oh, it's a mistake. Next time I do it better. And every time you do it better, little by little, then you change. And you actually are able to changing your whole operating system that way. And the whole of your behavior follows. But that cannot be done only through thinking, because thinking is too slow. And there's other laws that were that. You know, if you deep into Taoism, you know that metal cuts wood, for example. So there's no way that your rational thinking can modify the way you feel. But the way you feel is going to change the way you think. That's for sure. I know that goes against, you know, a lot of things that we learn and try to believe. But our body says otherwise. Okay, so let's do some practice. So that way we can get to questions about, you know, this thing. A practice I would like to emphasize, an aspect of that practice I'd like to emphasize is to answer something that's current. And there is something very beautiful happening right now because of this pandemic things, the need to, you know, to protect ourselves, to do all this, you know, and to be isolated and all that, actually brings people out, brings people to connect with each other better. And what there's been going on with all those big demonstrations going on right now because of racism. Racism is a big disease. It's a social disease. And this is a real pandemic. It's nothing to do with flu. See, the flu, either you have it or you don't. Racism, you have it. It's part of your culture. No escape. We bathe into it. We grew into it. It's part of our educational system. And it's not only racism. It's way beyond that. It goes to xenophobia, meaning that the fear of the stranger, the fear of doing things different. You know, in the United States, it's different because it's a big country, it's a kind of big island. But if you're coming from Europe like me, for example, you know that the worst enemy is actually your first neighbors. You know, because always conflicting, there's a border, there's something to respect, there's different laws and everything. So basically, we grew up in a culture that's very vindictive, always fighting, always fighting. And those ways trying to justify abuse. And that's what racism boils down to. Racism is a way to be able to perform abuse and justify it. I'm saying that all those people are so different. Look, it's not the same color, you know? And they think they're friendly, therefore they're inferior, therefore they can be abused, right? And that exists in every country. You know, if you look at the history of every country, there's some kind of abuse of ethnic, you know, abuse and things like that everywhere. So it's very important to use this kind of crisis, and that's against the disease. We need to use as an opportunity for healing. And healing means no solution, what to do now with the police, with people, things like that. Yes, of course, there's all kind of laws to change and all that. But the real healing is not going to come from like Band-Aid modifications. It's going to come through transformation, changes. And the change has to come from within every one of us. And the beauty of it is that the more people are sick, the more people are, we call in our culture, part of the problem. That means the more people is going to be part of the solution. That means that we make it a collective duty to work out something that we need to heal from, a disease we need to heal from. And has to start to at the individual level, yeah? To find it within ourselves, within everyone, this kind of habit we have to react a certain way. And again, this cannot be changed just by thinking about it. It's going to be done by catching ourselves doing something that reflects it and be able to change it. And that eventually is going to spread. Like I always said, healing is contagious. But we need to make that healing of racism contagious by starting by healing ourselves. And healing ourselves is not to pretend that we are healed. We have to prove ourselves we're different. We have to prove ourselves that we can react differently than we are being learned, that we've been educated to. Because that's part of what we call last week, water, old water to change. Old water, we have to filter out and take only the very best. So, also we're in a culture that's based on don't do this, don't do that. Can do this. And because again, that's put yourself in conflict. So instead is to do things. So instead of not doing something, and that makes you try to prevent yourself to be a racist, do something that a racist cannot do. For example, and actually we're designed for that. You know what's the most healing part? You know what healing is mental, right? It's social intelligence. It's the arts. And the most emotional art is music. Play music together. Sing together, dance together. Do art, really exchange our arts capacities together. We are the country that's already started that. We go through crisis, but at the same time we go through healing. That's where jazz is coming from. Well, it's the roots of jazz. Root of jazz is Africa. There's no jazz without rhythm, without African rhythm, right? And yes, there is Coltrane, and yes, but it spreads. Right? Rock and roll is part of jazz, but you forgot a little bit the African roots. You need to go back, get back some good rhythm in there. But that's it. So we already have that. So basically, I think we're going to go through healing as a whole society, not only for racism, but for everything in terms of being able to build America, and not only a country ruled by one ethnic, but be able to share and take the very best of every culture. And this is done through the arts. And we have done that already. We just need to do it more and better. And we have to learn through that. Any questions about that? Yes, go ahead, Kaleo. I cannot hear you.
Okay, I just unmuted. Yes, it's really fascinating what you said, because I spent quite a bit of time teaching in the maximum security in jail psychiatric. And I was teaching meditation, qigong, and art as an expressive therapy. We were doing mask making, yeah. So, I found out during that process that the class had blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians, right? Yep. I found out that the language of the subconscious is images, and it's through art that people access the subconscious. And then, so they access the subconscious, and then they express it, then they talk about it, and they realize we all have the same archetypes.
It's the same language.
the
It's the
same
language of the
desire,
heart.
the same
Language,
the same
emotional.
fear.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
Yes.
And that's how we shared and healed through the art process. So that's
Exactly.
great. I'm glad you said that.
And that's why your work, Khalil, works so well.
Yeah, or mask making. Wasn't that fun?
Exactly. You get results. I mean, there's no way we do the work you do and don't get positive results.
Yeah.
There's no failure there possible.
Yeah.
Because again, you bypass
With
the, yes. It is. Yes, even poetry, same thing. It's using English, the language, like a human language coming from rational thinking, but putting metal into it. It's like being ruled by metals. Metal cuts wood, meaning that letting the rational thinking being emotional to bring emotions out. And that, it's hard to do only through prose, or through the descriptive writing, but through poetry, you get touched, right? So that's what poetry is for. It's not to understand. And most of poetry is not understandable, but you need to be touched by it, the same way music touches you. And that's because that's the language of emotional language. And that's the emotional language that grows into your earth body and to your earth intelligence that makes all the harmonious work in there. That's what the earth intelligence is for, is to combine the irrational thinking with the emotional to create your essence, to create the soul in there. So that's where healing is coming from. So that where it's coming from is to be able first to differentiate those intelligences in order to make them work together instead of living in constant mental conflict and transforming that internal conflict we have into self-support, into mental support, mental, emotional, spiritual support.
Gilles?
Yeah, go ahead.
All this beautiful talk of the language of the soul and differentiation of our five intelligences. Just talking about all of this, is our body fusing all of this, just talking about it?
It's not doing the fusing, but we're doing something extremely important, actually, that comes to number one. It's called validation. It is pointing to a truth that the whole self knows about already. See, the earth basically knows about it, emotions knows about it. The spirit don't care, it goes ahead, he does what he wants, But your water, your instincts, your all that is piled up in there from all the ancestral luggage we carry in there, all those emotional issues we're carrying this back there. So our body knows that already, but it needs what I call permission to heal. And the permission to heal is granted only when your body knows that you have the power, the support system, and the maturity to assume the work of emotional integration. That's the very hard part of the work. That's why it has to be progressive. And you can only do what you can do. Or you can build yourself to it. But again, there is basic laws of existence to respect. We're here to enjoy life. So don't do too much. Healing is okay, but there's such thing as healing too much. Because you heal too much, you get into suffering. Don't want that. You want to heal in order to enjoy life.
I honestly needed to hear that message because as a healer, you can just give way too much. I really needed that permission to enjoy. So thank you.
You're welcome. See, everything I'm teaching, again, somewhere. That's why it resonates. Everybody knows that. And everybody says, hey, see, you hear that? Yeah, so it's very important for you to validate yourself. You knew that already. That's why there is a voice say, oh, he's right. Where's that voice coming from? It's from you. You know already all this. So I'm just here to point it. Oh, see, look, this is beautiful.
Gilles, what was the term that you used? Zen immunology or something like that when you were referring to cultural racism?
No, no, no. I talk about Zen and Zazen when I was talking about the earth, looking for the earth, looking for being present, looking for being in your body instead of thinking. So a lot of people in Zen, they say, don't think, just be. Very difficult because you cannot stop thinking and being. If you try to be, you have to think about what it is to be, right? So you're caught up into a kind of a circle that you know you're always going around the target, never being able to hit it. By trying to do something that your rational thinking is not able to, it's not designed for that. So you have to go to your earth intelligence, cultivate it, pay attention to it, and be there, and let your rational thinking be in the background, which is, we learn to do exactly the reverse as a good educated person. We're used to put our rational thinking in front of us all the time, full awareness, and let the rest of it in the background. And that's called self-abuse. Does that answer your question?
You used a specific terminology. You called it Zen something, and I had
Zazen practice. Zazen practice is the practice of sitting down, do nothing.
No. After that, you were talking about racism, and you were saying that it is part of our culture.
Yes.
And then you gave a particular, that's it, xenophobic. Thank you.
No, it's not xenophobic, xenophobic with an X. From xenox, Greek means foreigner. And the fear of the foreigner. Not the fear of Zen, okay? Xenophobic is not xenophobic, no.
You guys are real good together.
Thank you.
See, those are important questions to ask because, I mean, it can be misinterpreted so easily. Especially at accent, you know, sorry about that, but...
Xenophobic would be afraid of Zen.
Don't be afraid of Zen. No, Zen is a very high level practice. Actually, that's a big practice. A lot of people don't have the level of practice, then they get to Zen, and for them it's so hard. You know, it's very hard for people to really get to that place of being, you know, present. But if you do all that practice, then you can get into Zen, and then you'll be successful.
Gilles,
to differentiate your mind, yes.
Can you say more about too much healing leading to suffering?
Yeah, of course. It's quite simple, actually. You know, most of the stuff we have to heal from at the emotional level, like we're talking about racism, for example, it's not yours. You know, it's part of your background. If it's part of your culture, basically it has been given to you. You inherit it, basically. It's part of your birth package, you know. So it's not something that you want it to be. And of course, there is people that once you have something, you want to cultivate it. So people cultivate actually the capacity to be racist because it makes them feel good. Okay, so that's how you understand that some people are racist. Now, those people, they want to understand that they are in a very pathological field because they prevent human consciousness to progress. See, they don't think that. They think that, no, they're race normal, whatever. I mean, they always justify something. People never try to be bad. Or sometimes they do, but it's not the majority, right? Mm-hmm. Most of people that feel like they do bad things, they think they're doing good. You know, it's very relative. The truth is very relative to everyone. So most important is respect. You have to respect everything, the same way you have to respect every single part of you, especially the part of you that you don't like. Does that work?
So I was still like, what did you mean about this? How does too much healing lead to suffering?
So too much healing means you're taking on to you way too much, meaning that yes, it's important for you to heal to a certain level to make you progress at a personal level. Okay. Now, if you try to take on things just because you want to do more because you can, you might die from it. And then what's the benefit? You want to be able to respect within yourself your capacity for digestion. Eating too much is not going to make you stronger. It's going to make you weaker. So at the emotional level, it's the same thing. You don't want to take a bite that's too big for you. Take smaller bites. Make it comfortable. And be aware that the bites you are able to take makes it easier for others to take also. So let others do take their bites also. Don't keep all the whole pie for yourself. Basically, leave some healing for others. Yeah? Because healing is part of sharing the beauty and the goodness of life, and be able to enjoy it and be able to share the enjoyment. So you don't want to share only the suffering in life. You want to be able to share more enjoyment. So you have to respect whatever level you're at in order to be able to process through your healing, going through your healing process without needing to suffer. And that's another part, a big part of our culture, fortunately, and the idea of sacrifice. That's really bad. That's part of the pathology. Don't sacrifice yourself. Don't sacrifice anyone else. Do your part. And again, the key word here is respect. You have to respect yourself as much as you respect others, knowing that you cannot respect others if you're not able to respect yourself. So it's a double-edged sword. You have to be careful how you use it. Does that answer your question? Cool.
Gilles, I have a question.
Go ahead.
You mentioned the voices in the head. I wonder if all the intelligences have different voices in the head, or if that's just different iterations of one.
Yes, there are different voices, but not all in the head. Okay, the voice in the head mostly is rational thinking. And that comes from the front lobes of the cerebral cortex. And that's why we locate that intelligence called the third eye, and the consciousness voice. It's the voice, the job of that voice is to step out of the present and to take a distance and contemplate and say, oh, that's the way things are. And that's very important. But there are other voices in the body, and those voices speak a different language. English, only rational thinking, or whatever your native language is, of course. The language you have to learn during a lifetime, that comes out of the development of rational thinking, understanding better, the need to understand better. But all the other voices are immediate. And those are the voices that are understood through anything alive. Feelings, for example, the language of feelings is not so much what you say, but how you say it. It's the sound. Again, the expression of emotions is it's a wave. It's a sound. So it's the musicality in your voice that carries your emotions. That's the voice of your emotions. The voice of your spirit is different. We call it intuition. Intuition is whatever attracts you. And there's no word for it. It's very spontaneous. You can translate it. It's like all of a sudden, oh, you're attracted. You cannot explain, or you could explain, but then whatever it takes, another delayed reaction, and you try to give yourself explanation. But there's no explanation. You're just attracted. There's always a good reason for it. And the reason is usually very precise, because what attracts you might not necessarily attract someone else. You attract to something specifically designed to your heart. So that's the language of your heart. It's in your blood. It's actually called the hormones, in science. That's the language. And the language of hormones is not even music. It's another vibration. It's smell, the way it smells. And the communication of, wow, that smells good. That smells good, it's good for you. It smells bad, don't eat it. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So different languages like that. Mm-hmm. The voice of your instinct coming from water in the back. That's very fast, strong. That's what's in your pattern of habit. That's your reflexes. You don't have time to think. No time for translation. It's after you realize, whoa, I jumped. I must have been afraid. But while you're afraid, you don't think you're afraid. You're just jumping. So that's the language of fear. The language of something coming from instinct. And it's a good thing that you don't have time to think, because you have to run first. You hear something that's scary. Sounds can be very scary. Makes you react by reflex. So that's the language of your instinct. So every intelligence has a different voice, but again, it's not in the head. It can be translated in the head, yes. And we're going to see that especially with emotion, and that's with how we use the fusion, eventually as a meditation. And that's why it has to be a little modified from Westerners and Asian people from the time of the origin. That's why it's called esoteric practice, because it has to be adapted continuously to be efficient, to whoever is going to practice it. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, very good. Okay, how are we doing with time? Oh, I didn't get my timepiece with me. It's okay.
It's 11:06.
Okay, so we need to practice.
Time for some practice. Yeah.
Let's do practice, because now we're ready. Because basically, once we understand better, we need to understand, because being Westerners, we are not going to do something without understanding why we do it. Then we put ourselves into, we give permission to open up awareness to something else, to discover, to learn. So let's do that. Okay, ready everyone? So let's sit comfortably. And let's work with the infrastructure first. So feel yourself, your body. We're being right here, right now. That's your earth intelligence. I'm here. I'm present. I'm here. Look at your surrounding. You're the center of your universe. That's earth. And from that earth, we're going to make bridges. And the bridge of communication, that's metal. That's a metal bridge. That's through breath. So through our breath, we establish the mean of communication, surface contact with other consciousness. So expanding your breath, so feeling your breath expanding like a sphere in your abdomen. And the sphere is not only the front of your abdomen, think about your back. Also expanding, breathing toward your sacrum, toward your pelvic floor, then up your back to your shoulder blades. And you're going to feel like when you breathe that way, and the front opens up effortlessly. So you open your breath like an umbrella, opening all around at the same time. So breathing, being here, sitting. So sinking as you inhale, and sinking, you connect with earth. You plug in with the source of life. Now you plug in with your basic support of life. And that's unconditional support. So connecting with the fact that's unconditional. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, you're alive, therefore you made it. Now you're receiving the life force from the earth. Sinking as you inhale and pushing your body weight comfortably into the ground as you exhale, you're plugging into life. And we're going to start with what we did a little bit last week, connecting with being here and connecting with your zone of influence. I am here and I'm aware of my presence, and be aware how the rest of the world is aware of your presence around you, like right here, right now, for example. And it might be like animals around, or whatever, or plants, a living being that are directly influenced by your presence. And also maybe people looking at you or whatever. And be aware also how you're affecting people, not aware that you're here, right now, but just by being alive, by needing to eat. Some people have to grow the food, some people have to bring it to the store. And then when you buy it, it's coming from the store, but there's a long chain of events that allows the food to be on your table every day. The clothing you're wearing, and what you do, as a job, not only as a job, but everything you like to do, whatever makes your existence. So be aware of your presence in existence. How you connect to your relatives, to your friends, to your surroundings. And how you have like a definite footprint on existence, so it changes it. And life will be very different without you. And so you're a link in the big network of life. And from the link, you get support all around you, and you give support, even if you don't even know it. You're contributing to the network of life. And whatever is happening outside of you has been already happening inside of you. And that network exists inside of you, connecting all the different parts of yourselves. So be aware of the forces that allow us to be alive. We have the earth place that allows, like, the infrastructure, the place for life to manifest. And that's your body. But the body has never been there the whole time. It has an origin. And that goes all the way in the back in your past, all the way the origin of your birth, before your birth, into the depth, the cellular depth of your DNA, right inside your body, every single cells in your body. In every single cells of our bodies, there is the origin of life. And the whole history of that evolution of life through the calling of our chromosomes. So that we call water intelligence. It's very deep. And it's water. And we're not able to live underwater. So we have to stay on the surface. And we stay on the surface of the present. And we have the past on our back that's lifting the weight of our body. We float. And we're being supported by the earth, but the earth is supporting the water, supporting the whole past of the whole evolution of life. In that evolution of life, the past, that the DNA all that information, all those lessons learned by your ancestry, that's what creates our instinct. By instinct, that's a big intelligence in us that brings all those lessons learned from the past. That gives us a pattern of habits, that gives us reflexes that you cannot resist, the same way you cannot resist water. And one cubic meter, and that's about a yard. 1 cubic yard, that's not that big, of water, that's 1 ton. No way you can resist that. Don't resist the riptide. You have to let yourself float. So we cannot resist instinct, but we're designed to filter water. And you cannot drink the water straight out of the ocean like that. You have to be filtered out through the sand, through the gravel. And eventually it comes out, even from the ocean, it goes out through the sand, up the coconut trees. And you have the best water up in those coconuts there. And where's that water coming from? Same water coming back, rooted into the sand of the beach. So same thing in our bodies. We are like even more perfected than the coconut trees. We absorb the water from the past and create the clearest, most freshest water we can drink in the present. We're taking only the very best from the past, the very best of our culture, the very best of our educational system, the very best of our ethnic backgrounds, cultural, social, economic, so many backgrounds, so many things we have that contribute to have instinctive behavior. And some of it, of course, we don't really like. And so we're going to have to learn to filter that out eventually. But your body already knows. And the earth is designed already to create the main filter. So get spring water in your body. So let your body filter all that water naturally. You don't have to do anything. And this is done naturally at night when you sleep. During dream time, body digests emotionally, extract the very best for you to feed your soul, to feed your soul body, to feed your emotional body. And then everything else you eliminate. You don't need. It's not because it's so bad, no, you just don't need it. Very important to take out judgment out of the picture. Whatever you don't need, you eliminate, it's okay. And what's not good for you is good for the rest of nature. Fertilizer. And so be aware of how your body takes that water from the past, filters it out. Yes, I've been cut out. Yeah, it works now? Okay, good. Sometimes we have some technological problem here. Okay, so be aware of your earth filtering out that water from the past and be able to extract only the freshest for the present. And then we bring that water, it's abundant water, we can't keep only to ourselves. That water from the present we're creating the future. So exposing that water to the light, to sunlight, to the fire. And sunlight is going to purify it even further. Put some ultraviolet light in there and kills all the bacteria and everything. So you know that the water you filtering now is going to be even purified better, keeping evolving toward the future in front of you. And you have the past in the water in the back, the earth right here, right now in your body. In front of you, you have the future you're building right here, right now from the present. Just by exposing the water to the light, to sunlight, to the warmth, to the feeling good, to the softness, the sweetness of the sunlight. So that's spiritual access, healing the spiritual access by filtering water. And you don't have to look so much for details. Let your earth do it. It's way too complicated for rational thinking to understand what's going on. You don't need to understand what to digest in order to digest, fortunately. You eat what connects to your appetite and let your body digest. Takes only the very best, is going to eliminate what you don't need. Same thing at the emotional level. You absorb that water from the past because it comes right out of your body, being filtered. All you have to do is to drink it and let it be digested by your body. Just with the intention of bringing even a clearer water to the future. I want my body to keep filtering whatever it is in there that I don't like. No need to understand, don't need to be intelligent to heal, fortunately. You just need to be honest with yourself. And these are the feelings that I don't like in myself. I don't want to give that to the next generation. And for me, it's too late, I have it. But the only thing I can do is to make it better. Filtering it out, eventually I grow myself, I put myself in a better future. And by putting myself in a better future, I know that the future generation will be better. So keep that spiritual access working, in the corner of your mind. That's basically cruise control. It works on its own. You don't need to think about it to make it work. And the thinking is there to enhance through consciousness. And the same way, when you're conscious of your breath, if you think of your breath, it has to improve. Because you'll be choking. Oh, I can breathe. You breathe a little deeper. So same thing when you're conscious of that natural process of emotional digestion, it improves automatically because you put your mental energy to it. You focus into it, so you bring more of your vital force. So you have that water coming from the past, getting to your body, to your earth. You can picture it like an island. It's nice. Any picture that comes to you is fine. And the water coming from your back or from the mountain, the glaciers and the rivers coming to your valley, to your land. And how you lift that water up into a river that you expose to the sun, and that all that water in the river is going to go to the ocean to be evaporated again and feed the next generations. It's going to snow on the mountain again next year. And from that water going to earth, exposed to the sun, you cannot just put water on earth exposed to the sun and nothing grows out of it. You have wood growing. So what is that wood growing out of that, all that information coming from the past, growing in the present in your body? It gives you what we call a belief system. This is what I believe now because I know better. By knowing better, you let it grow. And there's no end to understanding better. There's no end to have a clearer mind. Rational thinking can always learn more and more. Wood intelligence, and that's the yang part of our soul. And the superficial, the appearance, and this I am is what I think I am. So let the wood grow naturally under the sun. The sun attracts the wood toward the future. Called updating a belief system. And every time we update the belief system according to what's going on in the present, we're creating a better energy for the future. And the wood keeps growing. More intelligence, more information, and better information, updated information. They keep changing, like the leaves of the trees that drop every year to allow new leaves to grow, new way of thinking, new ideas, even new paradigms, new functioning, new viewpoints. There's no end to understanding better. So making room, big mental room for that rational thinking to keep growing and don't stop thinking. But use the capacity of attention to be able to focus on the other intelligences and bring that awareness to the other intelligences, especially emotional. Be able to turn to our emotions and be able to feel that, wow, this is the way I feel. There's no choice there. It's not rational thinking. Thinking can always change thinking. There's always choice, in thinking, but in feelings, no. That's the way I feel. So rational thinking needs to validate feelings. That's a very important work of the called wood intelligence, rational thinking toward metal. And that's, they say, called consciousness, emotional consciousness. Again, emotions are too immediate to be conscious of themselves. It needs the rational thinking to bring consciousness. Wow, that's the way I feel. How about that? Validation. If you like the feeling, this is good. And it's easy to digest. If you don't like the feeling, it's more difficult. And it's going to take a slower digestion. That's called a healing process. I don't like to feel that way. But what can I do now? I do feel that way. You have to let yourself digest. Letting yourself digest, you mean out of that digestion, you're growing, and eventually you'll be growing out of being negatively affected by those emotions, by whatever causes those emotions. Well, are growing emotional issues. And then from a belief system, from the wood thinking, bringing our attentions deeper in ourselves to those feelings. The place of emotional intelligence. So from Western perspective, we're going to go immediately toward what we don't like. Don't do that. Go to good feelings. Let the bad feelings being worked out on their own. They get digested. Don't worry about them. Get to the place of beauty. Mental intelligence, that's the place of aesthetics. That's the place of not only external aesthetics of beauty, but internal beauty. And that's we call the sense, ethical sense. And the sense to be true to yourself, to be honest, to be, we call to have a morality, to have a sense of an integrity in terms of respecting your sense of ethics. And that's different than respecting the law. That's rational thinking that needs laws. Emotional body doesn't need law, but it needs to respect your sense of pride, about be able to have a sense of respect. That's emotional. Rational thinking has no respect. Because respect will be too limit, that brings limits to thinking. You don't want that. So that's why you need a differentiation between thinking that needs not to have respect for things so they can analyze it, and feelings that needs to have the respect in order to have a good sense of oneself. And that can be turned toward rational thinking. And that's the big job of the emotional body, the emotional intelligence toward rational thinking. The job of rational thinking is to give all the different possibilities. There's so many of them. But metal is to cut wood a little bit, take out whatever doesn't look good. This is a possibility of rational thinking, but it's not responsible. Could be hurtful. It's not respectful of other people's feelings, or maybe even your own. So that creates internal conflict. That's no good. So let's discard that possibility. That's the work of the emotional body. See, the work of rational thinking is to provide all the different choices, grow more branches, more leaves, more species even, more variety. The work of metal is refinement. You cut, you make it beautiful. Yeah? You turn a whole called a jungle into a garden. Make it something that feels good. So have a sense of ethics that tells, oh yeah, of course, those, that can be very entertaining too. That's good, but it's not responsible. That can be hurtful. That can be dangerous. That can be not respectful of other people's feelings. So those are the possibilities we're going to cut out. And that's that gives us what we call maturity. Maturity, that's what allows the adult to set the boundaries for your kids, to protect them. Now, you don't run across the street. It's dangerous. Well, the job of the kid is to push those boundaries so they can grow. So they're going to try to play across the street. So the adults has to be there to put the boundaries. This is not a good possibility. So within ourselves, that's what we have to do all the time in terms of relationship between rational mind and emotional mind. The emotional mind is there to help direct the rational thinking into choosing always the best possibilities, the most beautiful, what can contribute to more beauty in the world, what's responsible, what's respectful. So very important interaction and turning internal conflicts of always criticizing oneself into validation, and the fear that's we build with education, the fear, emotional fear from a rational thinking to hide. So we live call in denial. No, it's okay. No, it's not okay. It's not responsible. Don't do that. So our metal has to sharpen, has to be stronger, has to be able to control emotions. So we are responsible people. So we are better educated mentally, basically, and have a sense of maturity. Sense of maturity is not rational thinking controlling emotions. It's the reverse. It's emotions being able to bring out the sense of ethics. So we have ethical laws. So we behave responsibly. And in terms of dealing with the negative emotions, that's not done through finding solution rational thinking. This is done naturally through the earth intelligence that knows exactly what to do with that. It's going to feed you with it. But to feed yourself with something you don't like, it has to be done when you're not conscious, when you're asleep. That's the process of cooking, internal alchemy. You transform everything you don't like into something beautiful. And the image is really cooking. It's the, we call it the fusion. We're going to do that next week with another meditation, another group. And the fusion is transforming all the negativity in there into something beautiful. You extract. And that's the same way you do in cooking. You take things that you wouldn't even think to put in your mouth, you know, the way it is, like raw flour, lard, you know, fat, you know, raw eggs, you know, you put that all together, or you blend, you make like a ball of it, you put in a dish, up in the oven, and then you forget about it. You come back half an hour later, you open the oven, you have a cake. How did you get there? The mystery of alchemy. Your body does that all the time. Internal alchemy is internal cooking. You take everything you cannot possibly eat, turn it into a cake. That's called maturity. It gives you that capacity for goodness, to be a good person, to become more humane as a human being. So basically, to cultivate our humanity. So be aware of that dimension in your body, and we're not finished with the meditation yet. So you have two directions in the body. One in time is linear from past to future in the present in your body. So we can picture that from your back to here in your body, to the front is your future. And your soul, that's your soul axis, that from the center out. It's not left, right, or up, down, or front, back. It's from inside out. On the outside, you have a belief system, your way of thinking. That's yang, the yang part. And the yin part is inside, is hidden. But it's essential. Right? Without the inside, you don't have an outside. That's what really rules. That's the essence. What's yin is essential, what's yang is substantial. So your substance is what you bring out through your belief system, how you behave in life. But your behavior comes internally from the way you feel. That's what rules your life. And so emotions, emotional intelligence is inside, is yin. And so two axes from the inside out, your soul, and from the back to the front, your spirit. I'm going to see when we do the fusion, it's going to be not so much back and front, but from earth to heaven. And so the endocrine system in the body in that direction. But it doesn't matter. We need something easier for the mind to grasp, right? So rational thinking. So be aware of that being made that way. And the past on your back, you filter out the water, you bring to the present. And from the present, you clear for yourself and bring it to the future, exposing to the light. And then that soul dimension from the inside out, from the way you feel, the way you can control your thoughts by taking only the very best. And connects with what makes life beautiful, what contributes to the goodness of life. And we're talking last week about the law of attraction. Don't put your mind on what you don't want. You're going to attract it. And you put your mind in what feels good. That's the work of your emotions. Your emotional body is there to choose what makes you, what uplifts, what's uplifting, what brings a breath, what gives you, pride, what feels good, like, wow, it's good to live. Yeah? Being proud of yourself. To be able to choose within your belief system what makes life beautiful. So from that meditation, you have the base of the intention that's going to motivate and brings forth the capacity to what we do, the internal fusion, and the work of enhancing the digestion of those emotions we don't like, and to be able to connect with the more meaningful way to the forces that contribute to existence, and to make it that way to improve the quality of our existence. Okay, I think that'd be all for the practice. I'm gonna take a few more questions. How are we doing with time, David?
20 minutes left.
20 minutes left, perfect. So let's answer a few questions. I know it's hard to talk after meditation like that. But just answer the question to help you to practice, better, actually. And because we're going to continue next Friday, we're going to step into emotional healing. Yeah. And we use differentiation of the mind, and we have some work to do with that. And the reason why we do that differentiation of the mind is to function more efficiently in terms of being able to grow as a person. And to do that, we need to learn to enhance our capacity to grow from our own emotions. And that's the second formula of the fusion. But first, to understand really the process of emotional digestion. That's going to be the subject of next Friday.
What is the difference between the mind and the personality?
The personality, basically, there's two personalities. That's the personality you feel you have, and the personality that other people perceive. Okay, so your personality in psychology basically is what we call the ego. Yeah? The ego, that's the part of you that you manifest as a person, and gives you a personality. So that's the image you carry, that's the information you carry within yourself. But a lot of that is, in psychology, they call it, there is the ego, then there is the subconscious, and then the unconscious. That's you carry in yourself. That's all that's in your personality also. So that's why I don't like to use those psychological terms, because from the perspective we're using the differentiation of the mind, there's no meaning is any longer. Because whatever is subconscious is only subconscious from a rational thinking perspective. If you're able to go in touch with your emotions, the way we're going to do in the fusion, then the subconscious becomes conscious. But it becomes conscious on emotional language term, not in rational thinking terms. So that's how we're going to juggle with the intelligences. We have to respect the language. The language of emotions is very abstract. It's the language of the dreams. That's why working with dreams is so important at the emotional healing level. We do that when we do the fusion retreats, and we do the working with the Tao touch and the healing aspect of healing emotions through touch. We have to get the person to reach that subconscious, and by what we call dream time, and how you induce dream time through touch. And that's done through the abdomen, through the enteric nervous system. It's very direct. It's very pragmatic. So it's not only make believe. You have to touch. You have to make it happen. There's no way you can resist. It's a very efficient way to work. Be able to digest emotionally through touch. I call it Chinet Sound Tao touch. I'm not sure I've answered your question about the personality.
Yeah, it does. What's the difference between the mind and the personality? So this is the personality.
Well, your mind is the whole thing, and your personality is part of it. And that's why it's so important to differentiate the mind. See, we do that. Oh, it looks like is my sound okay? You hearing me? Yeah, okay, good. Yes, when you learn biology, you learn anatomy, and in order to learn how your body functions, you have to learn all the different organs or different aspects in there. Same thing with your mind. Our mind is made of so many different things that need to be understood in order to make it work better, or we'll be able to change something in there. So personality is only a small part of your mind. I tell you, the biggest part of our mind is water. We're made of existence. Our mind is coming from our past. Everything we know is we learn from someone else. We learn through education. So whole belief system is coming from the past. And we have that earth intelligence that's present that needs to adapt the past to the present. And that's the part of our mind that needs to be cultivated, this capacity to connect with the earth intelligence. The earth intelligence, that's your body, that has all the answers out there. There's no answers positive. The only answer that come from the past is we call instinct. By instinct, we can always fall back into what made our ancestors survive. So we know that, hey, it's safe, it's okay, we've been there, done that, and it's okay, we exist. But that's about surviving, it's not about thriving. In order to thrive, in order to enjoy life, you need to adapt all this information from the past into the present. So for me, what the personality has to do there, your personality is just a product of all those intelligences that you bring forth in your behavior, basically. See, that's the thing about psychology. Psychology is more attached to behavior than understanding consciousness. See, my approach is very different. My approach is not so much to try to force the behavior to change according to what you understand best, according to it. That's what psychology is about. But about to understand what works in order to make it evolve, not to correct it. Correct means punishing. There's always going to be a negative reaction out of that. I don't like to be punished. I want to evolve. So that's why for me, you have to use it differently. The psychology is very different. So it's a different paradigm altogether. So nothing wrong with psychology, and it's okay. Yes, it's working. Actually, we need more psychology, not less. People need to be aware they have emotions that they don't like. But how you heal from that, that's my what's important to me. It's a healing aspect. How to work on the healing aspect. You need to know the biology of your mind in order to be able to respect it, not to fight it. To work with it. You work with your body, and eventually your body works with you. That's my approach of healing. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure.
Yes, thank you very much.
Cool, very good. Mm-hmm.
Olivier, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. Hello, Gilles.
Yeah.
I would like to know, I'm not sure that I hear well that you say, I think, do you say the sadness is a witness of the light? Do you say that during the
Can you repeat? Can you repeat that? Right.
Sorry.
Huh?
Did you say the sadness is a witness of the light? You don't say that during the meditation.
What is the witness of the light?
Sadness.
Sadness.
Yes.
Sadness. No, I didn't mention sadness.
No.
No. No. I said metal. Metal reflects the light. Yes, because that's the way we do. We have to keep polishing metal so we can reflect the light better and better, and so we can follow the spirit. And so the work of metal, the emotional work, is a work of refinement.
Yes.
We take the like scrap metal we discover in ourselves, and we don't like that. It's rusted and everything. So we polish it, we clean it, we sharpen it, we make it look good.
Yes.
That's the emotional work.
But during the meditation, I feel inside of my sex, I feel that it was not good. It was like nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a bad news and a good news. The bad news that you don't feel so good. The good news that you discover there's a part of you that doesn't feel so good.
Okay.
So the good news means that you give yourself permission to feel something that you don't like, that needed to come out to make you aware of, so you can digest it. And that part of you doesn't need to be understood. Yes, it just need to be respected. I don't feel bad there, and sleep over it.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
Summer, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm wanting to make sure that I understand the 5 elements in coordination to wood being the rational thinking.
Yeah.
And then fire being the emotional.
No, fire is not emotional.
Fire is not emotional intelligence?
Oh, no, fire is not emotional at all. Fire just attracts you.
Fire is attraction.
Yes. Fire is just love. I like that, that's all. You cannot question it. That's fire.
Okay. The earth is to refine it, to polish it.
No. Earth is not to refine. Refinement is metal. It's a sharpening, it's polishing. Earth is harmonizing. Earth is at the center. It's going to take this the way I feel. This is what I want. This is what I feel comfortable with. This is what I think. And with that, I have to live. We're here right now.
And you said that kind of like instinctual pattern, to catch yourself in your instinctual pattern.
That's water. That's water intelligence.
That's water intelligence. Is this in your biology of consciousness, how you break
That's
it
what
down?
the whole biology of consciousness is about.
Okay, very good.
Read it. Yeah.
A few times.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, because again, it's not element. Okay, very important. This is not element. This is the power. This is the energy, the force that allows the elements to have their behavior. So metal is not scraped metal. It's not a piece of metal. It's the power that creates metal the way it is. So you can make a jewel with it or make something beautiful. Water is not just H2O. No, water is actually a mystery. You try to check, Wikipedia or whatever, in Google water, and there's a new discoveries done to water. Water you cannot explain, and the whole scientific definition of water is based on what they call anomalies. Water is not supposed to be like that. H2O, 1 molecule of hydrogen, 2 molecules of oxygen, cannot look like that. It's not possible. I'm talking about gas. To make it liquid and keep it liquid like that, it takes some kind of power. And to turn into ice, to make it expand instead of contract. It's extraordinary. It's counterintuitive. Cannot explain. It's just the way it is. And there are countless, actually they counted them. I think there are 70, not 17, aspects of water that cannot be explained at the scientific level. Yeah. So it's the power that allows water to behave like that, to sink without forcing, to go forth, into springs, to have the ice float instead of sink, all kind of things. And the energy in water is tremendous. And they discovered a 4th state of water. And the energy water, that's the what water is doing in the sky, in those clouds, with create thunders and all the lightnings and all that. And the energy in there is tremendous. Mm. So there's a lot of mysteries that cannot be explained at the scientific level. And it's been demonized. It's been called, alchemy. Alchemy is the going to the source. We call sorcerers. Oh, another demonized term. Now we're going to the source of the origin of life. So it's not elemental. It's not the elements. It's the elemental force, the elemental intelligence we're part of. Being born, being part of this existence, we're made of those intelligences that we're part of. And that's the work of the fusion, to go to the source, to the sources of those forces, and to develop a better relationship.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a beautiful explanation.
Thank you.
Leo.
Oh, okay. Hola, Gilles.
Yay.
Hey. So each of the organs have the positive and the negative. I mean, the fear really harms the kidneys, the grief
yes.
really damages the lungs, the anger, the liver, etc. Right?
Yeah.
But then, and so in order for healing, what one can do is do this internal alchemy, and the internal alchemy can be done. I think from the acupuncture, from Chin Tsang, also from the fusion meditation, from enjoying life,
from sleeping.
From sleeping.
All the acupuncture, the Chin Tsang, all the healing things like that, coming from, especially for Western perspective, trying to fix something. See, the idea about health is not to fix, because if you try to fix, you think a broken system. You have to look at the system not being broken, but as actually something working properly, that you want to enhance the power, make it work even better. For example, disease is not something to be fixed. From that perspective, a disease is what the body creates for you to be able to go through the healing process. And the disease has to be very precisely designed for you, so you grow exactly the way you need to grow in order not to be affected by what created the pathological factor to start with. And that's mostly at the emotional origin of it. That's called the terrain, of the pathology. So when we called, the negativity of water being fear, the kidneys, anger, in the liver, yes, all that is true. But, you don't need to worry about that. The body is already designed to heal on its own. It's way too complicated for rational thinking to know where to stick the needle and this and that and what to, if you try to understand what to do, it's no way. It's too much limitation. We don't have the brain infrastructure even to carry enough of our mind to be able to do that spontaneously during treatments. No, it has to become spontaneous, meaning that you have to connect into the healing field that already exists in the person. Even the person dying from cancer, the healing field is here. The cancer is there for the person to heal. The disease is so strong. Why? Because the spirit's so strong in there. Doesn't want a person to keep living without emotional charge. So it's providing the opportunity to digest something very big that needs to be encapsulated into a tumor. So the work of the healer is to make the person grow to a place where it can handle that information in the tumor, so they're not destroyed by it. And then they grow from it. And that's called spontaneous healing. Once the person knows what's in that tumor, the tumor doesn't need to protect the rest of the body for what's in there. It just dissolves.
But
that's the principle of healing.
But I feel that one of the beautiful things about acupuncture is that the actual points.
Exactly.
But yeah, the actual points are like they go in, they go out, and the actual points are doorways, they're portals, and you can enter these portals shamanistically.
That's it.
That's how you can make the alchemy.
Yes. So that's the next part of the biology of consciousness is the meridian system.
Mm-hmm.
See, the consciousness runs the information. See, and the information, that's not energy. It's two different things, again, to differentiate. For example, we have in electronics, you have a current, you have the energy field, you have 110 volts, and the amps running through it, so you get watts at the end. So you have the energy running, but around that energy, you have called magnetic fields. Information is in the magnetic field. Energy runs in the body, the bioenergy runs through the meridian system. And each meridian system belongs, the source of that energy belongs to that elemental force. And that's why it's very important to differentiate the different forces, because this energy carries inside the magnetic field, your mind. Your mind is in your ghost. We call the energy body. It's not in the meat. The meat is there because you're alive, the meat carries the energy. But even the energy is not your mind.
And the energy
is carried by the energy.
Would you say that the energy itself has its own DNA?
No. The DNA is the infrastructure that carries your instincts. It's different. So that's why it's so important to differentiate the mind, because your instinct, yes, you have the DNA that carries it, but how about your spirit? The spirit doesn't have a DNA. Spirit is part of the bigger spirit that attracts you, basically that wants you to fulfill your purpose in life. You are attracted into doing what you're supposed to do by liking what you're doing. So that's another aspect altogether, very different than water.
But I feel like the consciousness, the collective consciousness, what some people call God, whatever you call it, divine, the living, breathing consciousness.
So the consciousness we call, from rational thinking, that's basically wood. So basically, we are like maybe one plant in the forest. The forest itself is a collective consciousness. It's the whole ecological system that creates a whole forest where we are individual plants in there, individual trees or individual whatever. That works?
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Good, because unfortunately we're out of time.
Okay. Well, we're going to continue.
We're just going to continue.
Next Friday, we get into the next level. Yeah.
Yep, we'll share the booklet ASAP, and we'll keep this going.
Playing. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope everyone enjoyed what we went through today. It was a little heady, but it's okay. No, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Salud.
Thank you, everybody.
Salud. Yes.
Good.
See you next week. See you next week. Same day, same time.
All right. I do number
Hello. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.